LSV, you are back once again, and you are here to evaluate some more cards. How you feeling after the last time?
Great. It was a lot of fun. And I just want to say thanks to you and your community for being so positive. It was fun reading the comments of the last video, seeing the debate about the things I got right or wrong, mostly right, of course. But
of course, not to toot your own horn or anything.
Yeah. No. I like a card evaluation on the fly, and if it's a new game, that's even better. It's a lot of fun
for sure. And we're definitely going to be delving into some definitely newer territory, especially for you as a Magic player. So let's get into it. So for today, we're going to be delving into the extra deck, or as it was first known, the fusion deck. So how this works is that for Yu-Gi-Oh specifically, you have your main deck and you have your side deck, but you also have a 15 card extra deck. And what that is a pool of 15 cards that at any point you are allowed to access those cards through different means. And we're going to be covering those throughout this video. The first of these mechanics, and the most notable, especially from the anime, is known as fusion summoning. So I'm going to quickly show you what is known as a polymerization spell card. So you can give this a quick read here, and we'll get into it.
Okay, so it fuses 2 or more fusion material monsters to form a new fusion monster. Okay.
Yes. So I imagine Magic has many old cards with old text. This is one of the first cards ever printed, and obviously it doesn't really tell you that much, but I thought I would just show you some of the fun old text that Yu-Gi-Oh has. So this one's a bit more descriptive, and this might give you a better sense of what that actually means, because that doesn't really tell you anything.
Send fusion material monsters that are listed on a fusion monster card from your hand or your side of the field to the graveyard and special summon that fusion monster from your fusion deck. Oh, I get it. So you would put cards in your deck that summon specific fusion monsters, and this does that. It lets you kind of, you have like a minion who can summon like the real monster you want, and that's the one you put in your deck, and you special summon the fusion monster by doing this whole process.
Correct. So this is something that this goes all the way back to the very first episodes of the anime. They were doing this. And so this is one of the ways that we are able to, in Yu-Gi-Oh, trade our resources for stronger cards. You may recall from the previous videos, we talked about things such as tribute summoning and such. But remember that Yu-Gi-Oh doesn't really have a resource system per se. The cards in our game are more of a resource than anything else. They obviously are in Magic, but you have to manage that also with your mana base and such. For Yu-Gi-Oh, it's all about the cards. And so this, along with several other summoning mechanics that we might talk about in later videos, this is how we're able to exchange cards in exchange for a lot of power. And sometimes that might play out in better ways than others, but we're going to be showing you some fusion monsters and some other variants of this polymerization spell card. This isn't the only card that allows you to fusion summon. As time progressed, we got more and more of these into the game. So your goal for today is we're going to show you both fusion monsters, as well as some of the ways to summon those fusion monsters. And just like the first video, you're going to evaluate them, but also try to determine whether or not at any point those cards were ever on our forbidden list. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Okay, so let's start off with a very easy one, a very iconic one as well, just to get your feet wet. This is a fusion monster. So you can see here, the fusion monsters are purple in color. That's how you know that they're a fusion monster. They also say fusion down there in the text box. So give this one a read for us.
So this is Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. It's a dragon fusion, and Blue Eyes White Dragon, Blue Eyes White Dragon, Blue Eyes White Dragon you have to fuse 3 of them, it looks like. Correct.
So those are the fusion materials that the polymerization card was indicating. So how this would work at a base level is if in your hand or field you have a combination of 3 Blue Eyes White Dragons, you would activate the polymerization card, send all those cards to the graveyard, and then you would go into your fusion deck and place the Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon onto the field.
Okay, so it goes directly into play, and it's got to be a lot stronger to be fusioning things from your hand than in play so you don't have to waste time playing them.
Correct, because do recall that we do have a normal summon that we're allowed once per turn, but you have as many special summons as you want as well, and a fusion summon is considered a special summon, so it's one of those additional summons that you get.
It's also a 4,500 attack, 3,800 defense, which, I mean, obviously is pretty large, I would imagine, because otherwise why go through all this trouble?
8,000 life points is our starting life total for context.
Guesses this wouldn't have gotten banned. I could definitely be wrong, but this just looks like a bunch of big stats. Those kinds of cards typically don't get banned.
What would you say if I show you this way to summon the Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon? Why don't you give this card a read here?
Cyberstein. So this is a machine effect. So this is a monster, though, right? Yeah, it's got attack and defense.
Correct.
700, 500.
Correct.
Pay 5,000 life points. Oh, yeah. very clearly this is going to lead to something getting banned, whether it's this or something it's summoning, but probably just this, because I can just off the top, paying life to summon things is just an incredibly good way to use resources. Your life total just doesn't matter till you're dead. So some of the historically strongest cards in Magic have been where you can pay life to get effects, whether it's just to draw cards or to kill creatures or whatever it is. This lets you pay 5,000 life points to special summon a fusion monster in the attack position, which it seems like playing this and then immediately paying more, I guess more than half your life, but you just put something gigantic like the Blue Eyes White Dragon or Ultimate Dragon into play. My inclination would be that Cyberstein gets banned and not necessarily Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, but when it comes to the dragon, it really does matter how you're summoning it. My judgment that that the Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon didn't get banned is based solely on fusioning 3 Blue Eyes White Dragon into it. That does not seem too broken. But yes, with the more cards like Cyberstein you have, the more dangerous a 4,500 attack monster becomes.
Let me throw a third card into the mix for you. Give this card a read here.
Megamorph. It's a spell, and it says, while your life points are lower than your opponent's, double the original attack of a monster equipped with this card. While your life points are higher, you have the original attack. I see. This is like a turn 1 kill. I guess maybe turn 2. You can't really attack on turn 1. Is that right?
Yeah, the player who goes first can't attack, but we don't have Summoning Sickness. So hypothetically, if you go second and you have this 2-card combination here, you could OTK hypothetically, yes. Yeah,
you would just need to draw Cyberstein and Megamorph. You always have access to Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. Definitely something in this combination is broken. I'm not confident which piece or pieces got banned. Of the 3 cards, Cyberstein looks like by far the most dangerous or problematic. Megamorph also seems like it could be really dangerous in combination with cards like Cyberstein, which conveniently lets you pay a bunch of life and put something giant into play. I guess if I had to guess, which is the whole thing we're doing, I would say Cyberstein got banned and the other 2 didn't, but maybe all of them had to go. I don't know.
Final answer.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Cyberstein.
Your intuition is unmatched, LSB, because you were 100% correct. As soon as you're like, I think Cyberstein's the problem. Yeah, you're correct. So Cyberstein's a really neat card. It actually was one of the very first prize cards that was awarded to players for winning in some of our large tournaments. And so it was a card that it initially did get an official print so that many players could access it. And it was actually after that time that the card eventually got banned because there are other cards similar to Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon that are arguably more powerful, but in different ways, that if you just had, like you said, an open board and a clean shot, Cyberstein just automatically won you the game. There are also plenty of ways to tutor Cyberstein or special summon it directly to the field. And this was one of the original OG combos just to be able to one-shot your opponent. A lot of people who know old Yu-Gi-Oh! Are familiar with this. This combo was actually released in Japan, obviously before we had it here in the States, because Japan is a few years ahead of us in terms of just the way the game progresses. And they released this combo, and it was banned within 5 days of its release. It was too good. In practice, there are plenty of ways to stop this combo now. It's not nearly as good as it was back in the old days of Yu-Gi-Oh! When Yu-Gi-Oh! Was a lot slower. But funny enough, Cyberstein was banned back then, and if you can believe this, is still banned to this day. They have unbanned it a couple times, and every time they do, people find more ways to abuse it. So they just have to reban it every single time.
Well, the problem with Cyberstein is what it does is it lets you cheat a giant monster into play. You don't want to stop printing giant monsters. Giant monsters are cool. Stop printing enablers, or ban enablers. Like, those are typically the problem. You don't want to cut away the cool stuff like Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon or any other gigantic fusion monster, because like those are really fun cards to play with, I'm sure, and very appealing cards. Cards that let you pay a bunch of life points to cheat something into play. Actually kind of hit like the double whammy of not being appealing to a lot of players when they first look at the cards or learn the game, while also being completely busted. So yeah, you should probably stay away from too much of that.
Megamorph also was limited to 1 at one point as well, to sort of just stop things like this from happening. It was never really like that strong of a card. Megamorph is, in Magic terms, basically the equivalent of like an aura enchantment, so it sticks to the monster. What's cool about Megamorph is you can actually put it on your opponent's monster to sync their attack if you want to use it as sort of like a removal. Yeah, so it has like some dual purpose, which is kind of cool. So a neat little card, never like anything too problematic though. And this card's unlimited now because it doesn't really do anything. But I will say, either by the end of this video or maybe by, if we do more of these in the future, you will see that Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon is only scratching the surface when it comes to all of the cards that are capable of being summoned from the extra deck. And you might see some of the greatest defenders as we progress. So you're already 100%. I expected nothing less from this easy start here. I wanted to just ease you into this. So, okay, we're going to talk about some more big stats here. So let's go ahead and move on to your second fusion monster.
Dragon Fusion Effect. Interesting. So it's a 5,000, 5,000, and it must be fusion summoned and can't be special summoned in other ways. And you have to have 5 dragon type monsters to fusion summon is what it looks like, if that's how that works.
Correct. So it's any 5 dragons.
Right.
So as long as there are 5 dragons
Right,
anywhere that
dragon.
are precisely. So if you have any 5 dragons for your polymerization card in this instance, obviously I might show you another card here in a second that will help with this. Then that is what the requirements are in order to summon this to the field. And it has an effect too. You can read that.
Yeah, this card cannot be destroyed by battle with a dark, earth, water, fire, or wind monster. Are there other types besides those?
The 6th attribute, the attributes are in the top right corner there. You can see this 5-headed dragon is a dark.
Yeah.
The sixth and final attribute is light. There's technically a 7th, which is divine, but there's only 3 cards that have that typing, so that doesn't really count.
I would hope for Yu-Gi-Oh's sake that this card itself is not something that got banned, because again, this card is just cool as hell. I wouldn't want them to not make really cool fusion monsters, but obviously it's all context dependent.
Let's show you the card that people were using to fusion summon this, because it does have the line of text at the beginning saying it has to be fusion summoned. So you could not Cyberstein this out. And as we get into more complex cards, you're going to see more restrictions on these types of cards to prevent them from being cheated out in such way. But this is a card to show you. I will warn you, there's going to be a bit of text on this. So go ahead and break this one down here.
Future Fusion, it's a spell card. Send from your deck to the graveyard. Some interesting comma usage there. Fusion material monsters that are listed on a fusion monster card, and select that one fusion monster from your fusion deck. Special summon the selected fusion monster during your second standby phase after this card's activation. This special summon is treated as a fusion summon. When this card is removed from the field, destroy that monster. When this monster is destroyed, destroy that card.
So the one thing you might have quickly missed here is that this is also a continuous spell. So when you activate this, it stays active on the field. You're going to send the materials to the graveyard, and then 2 turns later, you're going to get the payoff here.
So this just looks like, I guess, how is this different from polymerization?
The difference here is that Future Fusion is sending the materials directly from your deck. Polymerization requires you to have the monsters on your hand or on the field.
Completely different story. Okay, yeah, I kind of glossed over that part. All the text got me. Yeah, so yeah, this card's incredible. Like, you do have to wait, but it's just a 1-card summon of any fusion monster?
Assuming you have the materials and the card in your fusion deck, of course.
Right. But that stuff isn't that big of a cost. Certainly putting cards in your fusion deck isn't like a massive cost. You get 15, that's a pretty good amount. And then having to put the cards in your deck is something. But I mean, if you're summoning 5-headed dragon, it can't be hard to... More than 5 dragons, because you don't want to like draw some and be short or whatever. But like, it can't be hard to find a bunch of dragons that you just want to put in your deck anyway. This card looks very strong to me. I would be surprised if this didn't get banned. Again, it's an enabler. And as powerful as 5-headed dragon might be, I would imagine that there are going to be strong cards you can fusion summon out. Future Fusion would be the problem then. So I would guess this got banned.
So Future Fusion banned, and you think 5-headed was totally okay?
Yeah, I mean, if there's other stuff going on with 5-headed dragon that's summoning it in such a way, I could see that being obnoxious, but it seems to me from looking at this that Future Fusion would be the problem, not the 5-headed dragon. So yeah, that would be my guess.
And you are correct. Correct once again. So Future Fusion's funny because, first of all, it's really cool, and you're going to see this as we progress through this video. There are plenty of different takes on fusion summoning, and I think that's sort of the fun of it, is that they just had a really fun time from a card design perspective coming up with, like, okay, how can we, like, alter the fusion summoning mechanic to make it more viable, because the biggest issue with fusion summoning is it's a huge commitment of resources. Yeah. Typically, I started by showing you Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, which required 3 monsters. On average, a fusion summon requires only 2. So that requires 2 cards plus the polymerization. So you're already at 3 investing into 1 monster. So from a card economy perspective, you're already at -2. So the payoff really has to be there. So Future Fusion's fantastic because it's a 1-for-1 as long as you have the materials to send from your deck to the graveyard. But the interesting thing about Future Fusion is that more often than not, people didn't really care about whatever they were summoning. They just saw this as a way to take 5 insanely powerful cards from their deck and send them to the graveyard and either have any sort of graveyard-based mechanic to, like, bring them back to the field or trigger any effects. So it allowed them to just get 5 additional effects to just make it so that they were going to overwhelm their opponent with advantage. If 2 turns pass in the instance of 5-headed dragon and you summon the 5-headed dragon to the field, that's almost just a bonus. You don't care if the 5-headed dragon hits the field, but you're not going to complain if you get a 5,000 attack point monster that is basically indestructible by battle in any way. Yeah, Future Fusion, it's not really surprising to see that this card did get banned. It actually received an errata a lot later on, and how they changed this card is you activate Future Fusion, you have to wait a turn until the next standby phase or upkeep, then you send the materials, then the second turn, you're able to summon the monster. So your opponent has one turn to sort of interact with you in order to stop the Future Fusion from going off, if you will. The card doesn't really see any play by today's standards because that's just not good enough, but back in the day, people were looking for any way to abuse Future Fusion. It's a very fun card, but also very...
To put it in Magic terms, this card's like 5 Entombs and a Tinker combined, which both of those cards are very broken. So,
okay.
This is a pretty ridiculous card. Look, the fusion mechanic is really fun. Magic's touched on that as well. They have like wishes that let you get cards from outside the game, and there's tons of. Okay. They've gone back to that. Well, I don't know, more than a dozen times, and it's really fun to do that. So I'm not surprised that you get cards like Future Fusion, but as with many old cards at the start of mechanics, people, the designers didn't necessarily know exactly what they were tinkering with, and this one looks over the line for sure.
Well, Future Fusion and just fusion summoning in general throughout Yu-Gi-Oh's early lifespan was not considered very good, just because the individual quality of cards that weren't fusion, it was a combination of that the individual quality of cards had to be really high, and the fusion payoffs weren't really there. So it sort of took this culmination of everything sort of coming together to make fusion summoning a much more viable option. And as you get into the later summoning mechanics that are in the extra deck as well, you might see that as well. But you're killing it. I gotta make these harder, man. I gotta make these harder. Okay, so we've talked about some pretty decent fusion monster, or rather some decent ways to summon out these fusion monsters so far. Let's actually show you a good fusion monster for its cost. Let's show you this guy.
Elemental Hero, Absolute Zero. That's a cool name.
It's a cool name.
So this is a warrior fusion effect. 1 hero monster plus 1 water monster is the materials. It must be fusion summoned and can't be special summoned. This card gains 500 attack for each face-up water monster on the field, except itself. And when this card leaves the field, destroy all your opponent's monsters. It's a 2,500, 2,000. Yeah, see, this is a really cool card where you clearly have to pay a cost. You have to sacrifice 2 creatures or monsters, plus use whatever the fusion card is. But in exchange, you get like a maybe, 3,500 or 4,000 if you've got a couple water monsters out, and it also just kills all their stuff when it dies. I mean, this card looks strong. I would not guess this got banned. This looks like a desirable card to be good and like kind of fun. It is a little obnoxious that if there's a way to loop it where you just keep sacrificing or destroying it, and it eats all your opponent's monsters. Oh, I can see something that's pretty annoying here. You can sacrifice maybe you fusion this into another one of itself.
He's so good. He's so good.
That sounds like it would be pretty obnoxious. No, I could see this. I guess I would think this gets banned. That kind of loop seems like it's really oppressive to play against.
Let me throw this card into the mix to see if this alters your decision or not.
Miracle Fusion. Banish from your side of... It's a spell. Banish from your side of the field or your graveyard the fusion material monsters that are listed on an Elemental Hero fusion monster. Then special summon that fusion monster from your extra deck. And this is treated as a fusion summon, so it works from that. So from your side of the field or your graveyard. So yeah, this is the fusion card that you would use with this. This is one of the rare cases, or that we've seen so far, I guess, where I think the problem is Elemental Hero, not Miracle Fusion so much. The Miracle Fusion looks like a pretty standard fusion spell. I'm not seeing... Oh, it's from your graveyard. That's the difference.
Yeah, so we talked about polymerization being from hand or field. Future Fusion was from the deck, and Miracle Fusion, it is a miracle if you top deck it, because you most likely will be able to activate it because you can just banish the resources from your graveyard. If you need
now I'm not sure, because I was going to guess that Elemental Hero got banned and Miracle Fusion did not, but they both seem like they're problematic, both in concert and just individually. This one's tricky. I'm either going to guess both or just Elemental Hero, and...
It seems like you're pretty set on Ab-Zero being banned.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to guess that both got banned. Miracle Fusion seems... The opportunity cost of just banishing stuff from your graveyard is just so low. Like, in just the course of a game, you would fill your graveyard naturally, and this card looks like it'd be pretty strong. I could see it just being Elemental Hero or Absolute Zero. What do people call this thing? Absolute Zero?
People just call it Ab-Zero.
Ab-Zero?
That's just kind of like, yeah.
I could see Ab-Zero being more of the problem, where if that wasn't around, Miracle Fusion wouldn't be as bad because this is an Elemental Hero. So
there are also other Elemental Heroes.
No,
so
totally. I assumed that as much, but this might be the best one.
This is probably one of the best ones. Yeah.
I guess my confidence level that Ab-Zero is a problem, is like reasonably high. Miracle Fusion, I'm less confident in, but I am going to guess. No, I'm just going to guess that the Ab-Zero got banned and not Miracle Fusion.
Final answer.
That's my final answer, yeah.
Man, he's so good, but this is the first time he is incorrect in the video. So this might blow your mind. Neither of these cards have ever been banned.
Oh, wow.
It's kind of incredible to think. It's funny because, so currently, one of the most popular retro formats for Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now, called Edison format. It plays off of the March 2010 ban list, so everything from March 2010 and prior is what that format plays off of. Absolute Zero is one of the strongest cards in that format, but it's fascinating because historically speaking, this card actually didn't see a ton of play. It really took people going back to this retro format, really just diving in and figuring out like ways that they could take advantage of this card. There was naturally a hero deck that could slot this card in rather easily, but then there was another deck that found a way that, oh, we are already playing a lot of water monsters. If we just throw a few hero monsters in here, all of a sudden we can play Miracle Fusion, and now we have access to this insane bomb that we can just drop in the mid to late game to just make it really difficult for our opponents to win the game in any capacity. And so Absolute Zero, though, historically speaking, it saw its play in a smattering of hero decks, which is typically obviously what people were thinking because, oh, it's an elemental hero, I need to play it in there. But the hero decks in the old days when this card was first printed, I want to say this card was printed like 2008, 9-ish era. This card was never really played outside of hero decks, and so as a result of that, the hero decks were never really that good because all the other hero cards were really bad. People just back then didn't really figure out that they could slot this card into other decks in any meaningful way that was better than what you could be doing at the time, because Yu-Gi-Oh! Has a lot of degenerate stuff that, you know, when you look back was a lot worse than just playing a copy of Ab-Zero. And so as a result, modern hero decks, because hero is a very popular archetype, hero actually still plays this card today, and it's still quite good, but the hero decks still are not as good as like the best thing that you could be doing. Hero decks are considered more of like a rogue strategy at best. They have access to this incredibly powerful tool. It's just a card that people have generally just seen as like being relatively okay. It wipes your board if it dies, but you can use any single piece of targeted removal to like 1-for-1 it, so just don't overcommit into the board, deal with the Ab-Zero, and then you can make your push. Very strong card. Miracle Fusion is an incredibly crazy fusion spell just because it's basically free. But yeah, neither of these cards have been banned.
At the end of the day, like, if you're able to consistently be destroying all your opponent's monsters, yes, that becomes too obnoxious. I think that fusion cards are cool, and it's good to have good ones. This looks like a strong one, but I'm not like completely shocked it's not been banned or anything like that. If, you know, Yu-Gi-Oh's got a lot of powerful stuff going on. A lot of what's going to limit the strength of this is it requires hero and water monsters. So yes, if the supporting cast isn't there, it's just not going to be one of the best things going on.
Right, and that is one of the biggest hindrances when it comes to fusion monsters. And as time has progressed, they've made you can even tell, right, from the first fusion monster I showed you, it required specific materials, and then this and the 5-headed dragon, for instance, required less specific materials to make them more viable.
Way more fun to be open-ended. You don't want to restrict too much what people need to combine to play with their cards.
And this is when fusion really started to like open up as a mechanic. It still may not have been necessarily the best thing you could be doing, but it was giving players a lot more options to work with. But I think you'll be able to redeem yourself. Let's go ahead and show you one of the most popular and, in my opinion, one of the coolest looking fusion monsters they've ever made. This is a pretty iconic one.
1,000 Eyes Restrict. Is it restricted? This is
we'll find out.
It's a spellcaster fusion effect. So you need Relinquished plus 1,000 Eyes Idle. Okay.
So this one does require 2 specific materials. Right. I will tell you for the purposes of this video, that does not affect your ability to determine whether or not this card A is good or B is banned.
Other monsters on the field can't change their battle positions or attack. Once per turn, you can target one monster your opponent controls, equip that target to this card. You can only equip one monster at a time to this card with this effect. This card's attack and defense become equal to that equipped monster's. If this card would be destroyed by battle, destroy that equipped monster instead. This is a 0/0 and it like wears other monsters.
It literally sucks them up.
Yeah, a big vacuum cleaner. Other monsters on the field can't change their battle positions and attack. Does that just mean when this isn't played, no one else can attack?
Correct. The only card while this is on the field that can attack or change its battle position is the 1,000 Eyes Restrict. So it's very control heavy in that regard.
But they can defend.
Yes, they can still place monsters on the field in attack or defense position, but once they are on the field, they can't change their position.
cards that when they're on the battlefield, the entire game revolves around them. Yeah, those tend to be pretty powerful cards, and this certainly is that. I would obviously need a little bit more information to figure out whether this card is ban worthy or not, because on its face, my guess is no, but I'm sure that there's things that go along with it that will change that.
Let's give you some more information here. Let's show you this card.
Metamorphosis. Tribute one monster, special summon one fusion monster from the fusion deck with the same level as the tribute monster. What is a level?
So level is, if you look at Thousand Eyes Restrict underneath that dark logo,
it's
that
the
star.
And that's why all the other monsters had a million stars, because there's like 5-headed dragon has like 15 or something, or 12. I don't know.
Correct. I think it might be 12. I'm not sure 100%. But so monsters in Yu-Gi-Oh! Can have a level from 1 to 12. That's the maximum. And so Thousand Eyes Restrict in this case is a level 1. So with Metamorphosis, if you have a level 1 monster on the field, you can sacrifice that to Metamorphosis, and you can just immediately bring out the Thousand Eyes Restrict. And this is why I said the fusion materials for the Thousand Eyes Restrict don't necessarily matter.
Yeah, because I mean, you're just metamorphosing into this almost every time. On the one hand, Metamorphosis seems like the kind of card that has good intentions but can go awry because of stuff like this, where Thousand Eyes Restrict probably it's level 1 because the joke is it's a 0/0, right? It's not itself. It can just copy other bigger things. Gets around the Metamorphosis restriction, which is trying to say like, well, you can only get things that are the same level as what you tributed, so you're not getting a huge advantage, right? You can't sack a level 1 to get a level 10. That being said, that doesn't necessarily mean the problem is Metamorphosis as the enabler, because Thousand Eyes Restrict is the one that's kind of like artificially underleveled while also having an effect which is just really tough to, like, you can't really progress the game that much while your opponent has one of these in play. It doesn't look like.
Correct. Typically when Thousand Eyes hits the field, the game comes to basically a complete standstill.
When you target a monster with this and equip it, that just stays on until something else happens, right?
Correct. So in the instance of if it's a face-up monster, Thousand Eyes Restrict will equip it basically as like an enchantment aura to it. It gains its stats. You can also steal your opponent's face-down defense position monsters as well. In those instances, the Thousand Eyes doesn't gain any stats because it doesn't see what the stats of it are, because the monster is still technically face-down.
If you want to switch, can you switch?
Switch the monsters that are that it's like absorbed? No. So the only way you're able to suck up another monster with Thousand Eyes is if the first monster is destroyed in some way, and you know your opponent could interact with it. You know, you could interact with it. There are ways to do that.
Honestly, this sounds like a miserable card to play against. Like, if they land this and equip one of your monsters, you can't attack. Well, that's in play, but if you kill it, you're just killing your own monster, and they just do it again. Like, you have to have, I guess, 2 kill spells lined up to do that or something like that. Or maybe a way to destroy that's not by battle. Oh, because this is only by battle. I see.
It's only by battle.
Okay, that's a lot better, because I thought this also protected itself from removal.
Oh, no. This would be this would be a lot different if it was just
I'm going to guess
destroyed
this
by
is
any means.
On both the high end of power level and like obnoxiousness, which both go together when you're making ban decisions, or they should. I'm going to guess that neither of these cards got banned. I think they're strong. I think in some ways they're not positive. Like, it doesn't sound like the most fun gameplay, but the fact that you can use spells to destroy this, that really takes a lot out of it for me. So I'm going to guess that neither got banned.
What if I show you this card?
Instant Fusion. Pay 1,000 left points. Special summon 1 level 5 or lower fusion monster from your fusion deck. This special summon is treated as a fusion summon to get around the whole thing. The fusion monster special summoned by this effect can't attack and is destroyed during the end phase. So if you use this to summon Thousand Eyes Restrict and then steal something, can it then attack?
No, it still would be able to attack.
It still would not be able to.
Correct, because Instant Fusion prevents it from attacking.
Okay,
you can suck up the monster, but you can't attack.
And then being destroyed by Instant Fusion would still destroy the Thousand Eyes Restrict.
Correct.
So
I think we've stumped him, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. I think we've got him.
Yeah, let me look at this again. Clearly, if you're showing me Instant Fusion, it has to do with this card, but I'm trying to figure out how these would interact in a way that's positive for you, because you can special summon this and you can equip, but you can't then attack, and then this would still just be destroyed. I feel like I'm wrong and I'm missing something here, but I'm gonna stick with not being banned.
So you don't think Thousand Eyes Restrict is banned, nor Metamorphosis?
Yes. Instant Fusion, I could really see going either way, because this card clearly looks like it's a ridiculous combo with something. I don't know what yet.
Final answer.
Yeah, that's my final answer.
All right. Well, unfortunately, it looks like you are now 50-50, because If you can believe it, both Thousand Eyes Restrict and Metamorphosis have been banned. Thousand Eyes is currently legal, but Metamorphosis is still on the ban list. I don't think that card's ever going to come off the ban list, if I'm being honest with you. So let's give you some context here. Thousand Eyes Restrict, I think your evaluation of the card is pretty spot on. There's a couple things you might have missed, and it's more so in line with Instant Fusion specifically. But Thousand Eyes Restrict is a very oppressive card for all the reasons aforementioned. Basically, as soon as it hits the field, the game is coming to a standstill. Thousand Eyes Restrict is controlling the game, and until Thousand Eyes Restrict leaves the game in some capacity, not really much is going to happen. And Thousand Eyes Restrict is most of the time going to take something with it, typically your opponent's best monster. When this card was playable in the early days of Yu-Gi-Oh!, Metamorphosis was the way that people used to cheat this card out. And there was plenty of level 1 monsters, very good level 1 monsters, that you would have some effect that they would use to do something to give you positive card advantage. Then you would use Metamorphosis after you use the good effect of the level 1 monster and swap it out for a Thousand Eyes Restrict, which is a much more menacing threat for all the reasons that we discussed. So then not only do you get all that positive card advantage from the level 1 monster, you get to take your opponent's best monster and in a way sort of use it against them, at least in terms of the stats, or at least just get a problematic card off the field.
Okay.
A lot of older Yu-Gi-Oh cards also had flip effects where they would be set face down first, and you might want to flip them face up for some sort of effect. Thousand Eyes Restrict would deny the opponent from doing that because since you could suck up the face down monsters, they wouldn't be able to get the value, and if they destroy the Thousand Eyes, that monster's just going to go to the graveyard. They don't get it back. So that was a way to sort of deal with opposing threats, depending on if you think your opponent might have something to interact with your board. Thousand Eyes Restrict was a really strong way that it was sort of just this catch-all that really just did everything you could have ever wanted out of a card. The only real restriction was just needing a level 1 monster in order to get it to the field.
Okay, I could believe all that, and my opinion on Thousand Eyes Restrict from the beginning is that, like, this doesn't look like a very fun card to have in play a lot of the time.
It's not.
So, yeah, I can totally see why that is. How does Instant Fusion factor in?
Basically, Thousand Eyes Restrict and Metamorphosis were both banned very early on for context. I don't want to say not long after, like 10-ish years later, they brought back Thousand Eyes Restrict into the game because the game has sort of progressed to a point that Thousand Eyes Restrict wasn't nearly as good as it was back in older Yu-Gi-Oh! Metamorphosis was still banned, but Instant Fusion was a card that had seen a lot of popularity and experimentation for several different reasons involving the extra deck. But people realized that, we can use Instant Fusion to summon Thousand Eyes Restrict. Thousand Eyes Restrict's ability to absorb an opponent's monster is a very unique type of removal effect that gets around a lot of other types of protection, such as can't be destroyed or different things like that. And so being able to suck up that monster was a really powerful effect because you were not only able to bypass certain protection effects of those monsters, you were also able to then use the Thousand Eyes Restrict for other types of summoning. So for instance, you could go Instant Fusion, special summon Thousand Eyes Restrict, suck up your opponent's best monster, then you could say tribute that monster for another one of your monsters in your hand, or use it for a different type of special summoning mechanic to special summon out some other bigger monster or something else from the extra deck, for instance, which without some of that context there might be a little bit difficult to pick up on. But basically it was a 1-for-1 card that took an opponent's monster. So basically you kind of came out ahead in that exchange, and then you could then use that Thousand Eyes Restrict before it was sent to the graveyard for something else to sort of trade up into an even better card at that point, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think what I was missing there is when you Thousand Eyes Restrict a monster, you can then tribute that monster. I did not realize that.
You can't tribute the monster that it sucks up, but you can tribute the Thousand Eyes Restrict itself as a monster or use it as a material for something else. And that's good enough a lot of the time, depending on the type of deck that you're playing.
But wouldn't then they get their monster back?
No, that monster goes to the graveyard because it's technically considered equipped to the Thousand Eyes.
Okay,
so
there
it
we
would just go. It's like you remove their. So it basically is a removal spell that you can play in your extra deck. That Instant Fusion has the versatility of special summoning out. So you could special summon Thousand Eyes if you need removal. You could special summon a level 4 or 5 that has a different effect that does something. So it turns the extra deck, or rather the fusion deck at this point, into a toolbox to allow you to use it for a lot of different things. And that's why the extra deck is a really popular mechanic for Yu-Gi-Oh!
We haven't answered whether Instant Fusion got banned or not, right?
Instant Fusion by TCG standards, has never been banned. It is actually banned in Master Duel, our online client, our arena equivalent.
Gotcha.
But it is limited to 1. It was a card that was at 3 for a very long time, and once people started to see the potential of Instant Fusion, they had to address it because it is a very abusable card for the pool of level 5 or lower fusions that did a really good thing like Thousand Eyes Restrict only got bigger over time. And as that happened, they decided to say, okay, we're going to pump the brakes here. Instant Fusion has to we have to rein the power of this in a little bit.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
And again, with Instant Fusion being a special summon, you could do all of this before you even commit to a normal summon of a play. So your opponent has to answer the fact that you bring out this removal spell, technically, in the form of a monster that can then extend into other monsters or other plays, potentially. So it was just a very good card by modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Standards. Doesn't really see much play today, but within relatively recently has seen some modern play just because it is a decent effect, all things considered.
Yeah, I mean, see, it seems like there's a lot of things you can do with the card. You have to do a little work to make, you can't just get like a giant thing or whatever, but there's a lot of different options with it.
Very old school classic card. And like you said, one that people are really happy not to have to deal with. Okay. Let's move on to this card. This is a bit of a newer card here. Let's see what you think of this.
Mud Dragon of the Swamp. A little redundant there. It's a worm fusion effect. It's a 1900 attack, 1600 defense. It says 2 monsters with the same attribute but different types. Okay. So water is the attribute, or is water the type?
Water's the attribute and worm is the type.
Oh, okay. So that's easier then. Than if it was the other way around, I think.
Correct. There's like 20-something different types in Yu-Gi-Oh! And only 6 attributes.
Your opponent cannot target this card or monsters on the field with the same attribute as this card with card effects. Once per turn, quick effect, you can declare 1 attribute. This become So this is very close to a magic card called Mother of Runes, which is a really obnoxious card. Which also you basically tap it to protect any creature until end of turn, and this kind of does the same thing. So it's got reasonable stats, it's untargetable, and it protects all your other cards of the same type. And then you can also, I assume quick effect means in response to them trying to do something, you can turn it into that attribute, right, and protect your other monster.
Correct. Yes, either proactively or reactively.
Right,
yes.
Right. And special summoning it with 2 monsters of the same attribute but different types. I mean, that seems not particularly difficult, but is obviously a cost. You're still having to give up 2 things.
I may have shown you a card already that can just special summon this card out to the field without needing to fusion summon it.
Yeah. There's a bunch of. I mean, so far we've seen a bunch of those cards that can do that. Making all your monsters basically untargetable is certainly a powerful effect. Certainly can be pretty obnoxious. Blanking all the removal spells kind of for the rest of the game, because there's not direct attacking, right? You can't attack their monster directly.
What do you mean?
Like your monster can't attack theirs directly.
Oh, yes, it can.
Oh, it can.
Yes, the attacker has authority in Yu-Gi-Oh! To dictate what monster you're hitting. So if I want to attack your Mud Dragon, I can. I don't choose blockers or anything like that.
But does that count as targeting?
That does not count as targeting.
Okay.
Targeting only refers to card effects specifically.
Okay. Well, in that case, I would guess, given the information I have now, that this did not get banned. It does seem obnoxious, but having the out of just getting to attack it with one of your monsters seems like that's a pretty big safety valve.
What if I show you this card?
Super Polymerization. Discard a card to fusion summon one fusion monster from the extra deck using monsters from either side of the field as fusion materials. Cards and effects cannot be activated. So you have to discard a card, right? So you're down 2, but you get to use their monsters as material. All right. And cards and effects can't be activated in response to this card's activation.
And I'll also give you a hint. Instant Fusion, the card we looked at prior to this new fusion monster here, can also special summon this Mud Dragon.
So you special summon Mud Dragon with Instant Fusion, and then I guess what you could do is that makes Super Polymerization really easy to use, because you could change Mud Dragon to whatever you need it to be, and then use their thing plus your thing to maybe summon something. Seems like a pretty reasonable way to do that. Super Polymerization seems really strong to me. It's got basically split second, they can't do anything in response, and you get to effectively, you could tribute 2 of their monsters or fusion 2 of their monsters into one of your things. It's
super LSV. It has to be.
Yeah, this is the kind of card I have played a lot with in Magic. Yes. Yeah, this is you're right. It is a lot more challenging today because I'm seeing a lot of cards with I would consider undesirable play patterns, like a card that makes it so none of their removal works while this is in play is not typically the kind of card you want to see a lot of the time.
Okay.
That it's hard for me to necessarily get that across the line to being banned. I'm like kind of getting the vibe that both these cards got banned. Maybe Super Polymerization didn't, because I think that the Mud Dragon really helps enable this card, because I think the risk with Super Polymerization is if they just don't have the same types as you, it doesn't do anything. Like, it doesn't summon your, like, it's going to be hard to fuse. Oh, are there fusion monsters that require like type, like any attribute, or sorry, any type to summon, or like are very open-ended like that? Or do they mostly require specific like types or attributes?
I will give you that there are other fusion monsters similar to Mud Dragon where it may not just say 2 monsters, but they have like a somewhat soft condition, such as 2 monsters of the same type, or like Mud Dragon, 2 monsters of the same attribute. But so it's like semi-generic, if that helps in your evaluation.
My instinct is telling me Mud Dragon got banned and Super Polymerization didn't. That's going to be my answer, but not very high confidence on this one.
Okay, final answer in that case.
That'll be final answer.
Oh, man, you were so close. You just had them flipped. So Mud Dragon, believe it or not, has actually never been banned. Mud Dragon is an annoying card, don't get me wrong. When you are on the other side of a Mud Dragon, it never feels great, but it is not a card that people would consider to be like toxic, mega turbo oppressive or anything like that. It's just an annoying card that sometimes pops up. But Mud Dragon is a card that has been used in several ways. It's a good instant fusion target because what you can do is before you start your turn, let's say in the current game, there are a lot of targeting type effects. You could start your turn by activating instant fusion to bring out this Mud Dragon. And now Mud Dragon, you can declare whatever attribute you like to make all of your monsters of that attribute. So now your plays are going to be insulated from any of your opponent's targeting effects, which means that your plays are going to be more likely to go through more often than not. It's also just a fairly decent card in terms of its level and attribute, just because of like other reasons in the game. But it's a fine card that you would want to have in your instant fusion toolbox in your extra deck, if you will. Where Super Polymerization comes into the mix, and this is why I showed it to you, you were pretty right on the money, but I don't think you sort of took it to the extreme with Super Polymerization. People would find opportunities where if the metagame presented itself, where where the best deck or some of the best decks were playing decks that were all monsters of the same attribute but of different type, Super Polymerization would become a mainstay in those types of decks to be used as a way to just suck up the opponent's monsters and just summon the Mud Dragon. It didn't really matter that you summoned the Mud Dragon off of the Super Polymerization. It was more so the fact that you got to out your opponent's board of some of their best cards, and the Mud Dragon is more of like a consolation prize as a result of that. Sure, it may have insulated your plays and just given you a body to work with, but Super Polymerization is by far and away the more oppressive card here. Like you mentioned, you can't interact with your opponent in any way when Super Poly gets flipped. It's also a quick play spell that's denoted by the little lightning bolt next to where it says spell card, so it can be used at instant speed. So if your opponent is doing something during their turn, and let's say you have Super Polymerization set face down, they might be trying to interact with you or do some play, and you can flip the Super Polymerization at instant speed in reaction and suck up their board and just summon the Mud Dragon, and maybe that's enough to just end their turn right on the spot there. Discarding a card isn't really the end of the world. A lot of decks are totally okay with that because this effect is so powerful and in a lot of cases game winning that Super Polymerization did actually get banned for a reasonable amount of time. It's legal now, but it's legal now almost out of necessity because so many cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Now have effects where they have so much protection, or they have ways to that if you try to interact with them, they might have some sort of instant speed effect to negate an effect or destroy one of your cards, or, you know, anything else like that, where Super Poly is a good way to just clean up their board to make sure that you're going to actually have the opportunity to break through their board and play the game. We like to call these cards board breakers, and they are sometimes meta-specific, depending on if there are cards that fit the criteria for Mud Dragon or any of the other what we call Super Poly targets. These cards that we typically only use for Super Poly because they fit the criteria. But Super Polymerization is just an incredibly powerful card. People really hate this card because of the fact that it is something you can't interact with. But like I said, it's almost out of necessity that this card exists in current Yu-Gi-Oh! But it's very toxic and very annoying.
Yeah, I mean, this card seems split second, which is like in Magic unrespondable like this card, is not, I think, a very good design mechanic. Like, part of what's fun about these games is interaction. So saying you can't interact with me is not super desirable. And then I can definitely see how people didn't like their side of the board being wiped so you could summon a monster. Yeah, I totally get that. My instincts leading me astray today.
You started off really strong, but it's okay. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a very complex game, and I'm giving you a lot to work with here. It's funny because on release, Super Polymerization actually saw no play, but it's, again, an example of fusion summoning just wasn't that good of a mechanic initially, and so they printed this card. It's an older card, sort of as a way to try to incentivize people to want to use the fusion summoning mechanic in some capacity, but then as the game aged and we got way more high power level fusion monsters and also more generic ones such as Mud Dragon to make Super Polymerization a lot easier to resolve, that's sort of where it reached this like precipice of like, okay, this card's getting like pretty toxic, let's ban it for a while. And then they eventually unbanned it when the game got even more extreme, that a card like Super Poly being legal is okay. So that's sort of just where our game is at, if you can believe it.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay, and let's go ahead and wrap up with maybe one of the most iconic fusion monsters of the modern era. And this is one that a lot of the anime fans love as well. Tell me what you think about this card.
Oh, it's the opposite of Blue Eyes White Dragon. Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. It's
very sick
dark
card.
monster, spellcaster fusion effect. You need Dark Magician, Red Eyes Black Dragon, or one dragon effect monster. What's a dragon effect monster? Is that just...
So a dragon effect monster would be any... so if you go and look at a card like, say, Cyberstein, for instance, that would be like an effect monster. It's not a dragon, but it would just be a orange-bordered card
that has like an
effect.
ability.
That's also a dragon.
Okay.
Correct. It has to have an ability. Yes.
Cannot be destroyed by card effects. Neither player can target this card with card effects. During your main phase, you can destroy one monster your opponent controls, and if you do, inflict damage to your opponent equals that monster's original attack. You can use this effect a number of times per turn, up to the number of normal monsters used as fusion material for this card. Once per turn, when a card or effect is activated, quick effect, you can discard a card to negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. And if you do that, this card gains 1,000 attack. I don't know, and I've been wrong today. This card looks like it should be banned because they can't target it, they can't stop it. It can just counter their stuff and destroy their stuff over and over again. If this card hasn't been banned, I guess I just really don't understand what's going on. But it looks absurd. Like they can't destroy or target it, and then you can just destroy your monsters. Okay.
I'll clarify one part too. It says you can use this effect a number of times up to the number of normal monsters used as fusion material. So a normal monster is a non-effect monster. And so for context,
that
Dark
means
Magician...
you have to use Dark Magician and Red Eyes Black Dragon.
And Red Eyes Black Dragon are both non-effect monsters.
Right.
So hypothetically, if you fusion summon this with both of those specifically, that effect can be used twice. If not, you can only use it once because you need to have Dark Magician as one of the materials.
Yeah, that's like for as long as this card is in play. Like it's
correct.
That's how many times you can use it ever, not per turn.
No, that's per turn.
Oh, that's per turn. Yeah, okay, per turn. Okay, yeah, I gotta guess this gets banned. I will say, if this card hasn't gotten banned, I actually think they did a really good job of designing the rest of the cards surrounding it, because it means that they did not have too many ways to cheat it into play, which will let you just use it kind of like unrestrained. And having good fusion monsters, as I've said from the beginning, I think is a positive for the game. So it would be cool if they could print a card this powerful. I just am suspicious that is exactly what happened.
Let me give you some help here. Here's the fusion card that people use to summon this. Give this a
Red Eyes Fusion. It's a spell. Fusion summon one fusion monster that lists a Red Eyes monster as material from your extra deck, using monsters from your hand, deck, or your side of the field as fusion materials. And if you do, its name becomes Red Eyes B Dragon. Does that just mean Black Dragon? Just shortened?
It's supposed to be Black Dragon. Yeah, it's just shortened.
You cannot normal or special summon other monsters the turn you activate this card. You can only activate one Red Eyes Fusion per turn. Yeah, okay. I mean, this card also seems very strong because, like, I don't know how many other Red Eyes monster as material. Does it have to actually specifically list Red Eyes monster, or it could be Red Eyes monsters fulfill the fusion requirements?
I will let you know, people were only using Red Eyes Fusion to summon Red Eyes Dark Dragoon.
Yeah, if that's the case, you don't necessarily need to ban both of these cards or anything. Like, you could probably just ban Red Eyes Black Dragon or Black Dark Dragoon. Yeah, I mean, this card cheats that card into play unless I'm missing something that looks pretty clean, like this hand, deck, or your side of the field, the deck being the strongest one there. Because it costs you nothing, really. It costs you future resources that you may or may not even draw. and you can't normal or special summon monsters the turn you activate this card. Does that mean you could do those before you do this, or if you've used those, you can only do that? You can't do this anymore.
So if you activate Red Eyes Fusion, that is the only summoning you're allowed to do for the turn. If it was a different type of effect, it would say for the rest of this turn, you cannot normal or special summon, just as an example. So if you're Red Eyes Fusioning, this is the only monster you are summoning that turn.
Right. You can't summon a different monster then activate this. Okay, well, I that doesn't really change my opinion that Red Eyes Dark Dragoon seems like the issue. I mean, there is a chance certainly that maybe Red Eyes Fusion got banned. I guess I'm highly confident one of these two got banned, and if I had to guess, well, hold on, let me think. Because from the perspective of those making the bannings, if I was like making those decisions, I would like to keep Red Eyes Dark Dragoon legal because this card's really cool. I wouldn't really want to keep, I wouldn't care about keeping Red Eyes Fusion legal. Like, if you ban Red Eyes Dark Dragoon, clearly Red Eyes Fusion isn't doing much. But if you could ban Red Eyes Fusion and have Red Eyes Dark Dragoon be a card people could play that would be strong but not too oppressive, that would be an ideal state. I guess I would still guess that Red Eyes Dark... They just don't want... They're just not going to want to ban this card. You don't want to ban cards this cool. That is actually like a big part of the decision. I mean, I've worked as a game designer and had to ban cards before, and you try to ban the less cool cards that enable the cool cards. Like, that's typically the order you want to do it in. Man, my instinct has been wrong so often today. I kind of want to just like guess that neither of these got banned, but I'm just looking at this text box of like, they can't target it, they can't destroy it, it eats their things and counters their spell.
Let me ask you this. Would a card like this ever exist in Magic, for context?
I'm trying to think what
is there anything even comparable to this?
I'm trying to think what the closest analog is, and there's like 2 card combos in Magic that basically shut your opponent out of doing everything. Like, there's a card that says like all cards become artifacts. It's a card type, and there's a different card that says artifacts can't be activated, which basically means they can't do anything. They can't tap their mana. They can't play new spells. All they can do is attack, but that just means they have to have enough to kill you out already. And typically that combo got banned partially because the one card found the other card. There's a card called Karn, is a planeswalker, a big robot, and he would find the other card and turn off all the artifacts. So it was basically a 1-card combo that basically made none of their stuff do anything, and this card is kind of similar to that.
Now, let me ask you this, though. At what turn were you implementing said combo?
Oh, it was pretty slow. Like, 1 card cost 4, which is usually like turn 3 or 4, and the other card cost 6, so it'd be like a turn later usually. So we're talking 5 or 6 turns into the game.
So let me pose this to you. You could do this on the first turn.
Yeah, I can see that.
That's part of what I'm just for context. Just for context. I'm just curious.
I guess I would be shocked if Red Eyes Dark Dragoon didn't have to get banned. At least one of the two, I could see the desire being to ban Red Eyes Fusion and not the Dark Dragoon. And if you ban the Dark Dragoon, I think you're kind of effectively banning Red Eyes Fusion because it doesn't sound like it does that much else. Yeah, I'm gonna guess that Red Eyes Dark Dragoon got banned.
You're struggling. I hear it. You don't know.
I'm 100% gonna guess that one of these 2 cards got banned. My question is, did both get banned? Just Red Eyes Fusion get banned? That sounds really dangerous. There's got to be other ways to summon this thing. I'm going to guess that Red Eyes Dark Dragoon got banned, and I'm totally prepared to be wrong because I think it could just be Red Eyes Fusion, but I don't really see how they both could exist.
Final answer.
Yeah, final answer. I'll do it.
All right. So Red Eyes Dark Dragoon, first of all, it's got to be one of the coolest looking artworks in Yu-Gi-Oh!
Definitely.
This is, for context, Dark Magician and Red Eyes Black Dragon are the 2 ace monsters of 2 of the protagonists in the show, Yugi and Joey, respectively. And this was never in the show. This was sort of just... Konami created this as sort of like a love letter to anyone who loved the anime, as making this like ultimate, just absolutely ridiculous boss monster. And I think they did a really fantastic job with it. It's funny because most of the Red Eyes cards typically suck, and this one was just like completely they were just out of their minds when they made this card. So Red Eyes Dark Dragoon is a card that is extremely powerful, saw tons of meta play, and there were also ways that you could cheat getting access to Red Eyes Fusion without having to like directly draw it into your opening hand. There was another card in the extra deck we're not really going to cover today, but the short of it is, it was a very easy monster to access that allowed you to send a fusion card from your deck to the graveyard, and you got to copy the effect of that card. So what you could do is that whatever deck you're playing, you could do all of the things that you want to do, summon a bunch of monsters, whatever, then consolidate your resources into this card, activate it, send Red Eyes Fusion to the graveyard. Then that would allow you to then send the materials, the Dark Magician and the Red Eyes, and add had a Red Eyes Dark Dragoon on top of your board in addition to anything else you did that turn. The clause on Red Eyes Fusion doesn't apply because it's only copying the effect of the Red Eyes Fusion to Fusion Summon. So you sort of like cheated around this mechanic that was supposed to like hard lock Red Eyes Fusion into only allowing you to summon Red Eyes Dark Dragoon for the entire turn. But some decks, some control decks as a matter of fact, who didn't really play any monsters and actually played a lot of trap cards, they were very grindy control decks, kind of akin to like what I imagine blue control decks are like in Magic. They would not really summon any monsters, and so they would just play Red Eyes Dark Dragoon anyway as a big boss monster that they could have to protect all of their trap cards and just allow them to have another layer of interruption to be able to control the game and make sure that it was going to be very difficult for the opponent to play the game. Every part of this effect is absolutely absurd. It can't be destroyed. It can't be targeted. You get to destroy up to 2 monsters your opponent controls, and then you burn them for the damage, which can just be the difference between, like, you know, winning or losing a game if this card can hit the field. And then on top of that, it's an Omni Negate once per turn. That's once during either player's turn, because it's a quick effect, so you can negate something on your turn, on your opponent's turn, as long as you have cards to discard out of your hand. And the shocking thing is, this card, by TCG standards, the non-Asian territories, was actually never banned. I don't know how. In the OCG, the Asian regions, it is actually banned. It's still currently banned to this day. But Dragoon never actually saw time on the ban list. But to be honest with you, I think it's for the reason you touched on. I think it's just a really cool card, and it just harkens back to, like, the anime and such. I just don't think they wanted to ban it. There are options to deal with Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. It's not like it was, like, the most impressive boss monster we've ever seen. Super Polymerization, that's the reason I showed that card to you earlier, was a way to deal with Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. If your opponent left 2 dark monsters on the field, assuming they weren't spellcasters, you could Super Poly away your opponent's Red Eyes Dark Dragoon plus another dark monster and summon a Mud Dragon of the Swamp onto your field. So this was actually a card that people, I don't want to say mainboarded, but probably sideboarded in instances where they played against Dragoon decks. So they had a very clean answer to removing Dragoon from the field at all, and because Super Poly says your opponent can't respond to this, Dragoon wasn't able to negate the activation of the Super Polymerization either. We also have cards that are called Kaijus. Kaijus are very unique cards, I think, to Yu-Gi-Oh! They have the ability to tribute your opponent's monster to the graveyard, and you special summon the Kaiju to their side of the field. They're like giant, like Godzilla monsters. Sure. And so that is a card type that doesn't target or destroy. You're effectively sacrificing, you're tributing away the Red Eyes Dark Dragoon in order to give them another monster in its place. And so these are popular cards when there are these types of Dragoon cards in the game that people will either mainboard or sideboard to have a way to deal with a card that is this powerful. So it's not that there weren't ways for people to answer Dragoon, and it probably wasn't the most, I don't know if you could believe this, I don't even think it was the most oppressive thing you could be doing during this time. There were actually things that were, like, by far and away worse, but Dragoon was just like, oh, I can do all these crazy things and get a Dragoon for free. That's actually just, like, insane that you were even allowed to do that. I will say, they did ban the enabler that I mentioned at the beginning of this that allowed you to send the Red Eyes Fusion to graveyard to copy the effect of it. That card eventually got banned because it was being abused with many other fusion type effects. Red Eyes Dark Dragoon was just one of them, but that card eventually just had to go because it was very unfun and enabled stuff like this. But Red Eyes Dark Dragoon was never banned. Red Eyes Fusion was never banned.
I'm going to say I deserve at least partial credit because it sounds like this got banned in some places. And it kind of got away with it for the reason I said, which is that it's too cool, which I understand. Like, that is actually, like, a pretty legit reason. Like, the purpose of card games is for people to have fun, and cool cards are fun. So I do understand that, but I'm going to assign myself partial credit because I have the authority to do so.
Sure. And to be fair, like, that's one of the hardest parts about doing these videos is because between the non-Asian and the Asian territories, our ban lists are quite different because our card pools are different, and both regions, divisions of Konami act independently, so they don't really have like a ton of... Yeah, we could do a whole video about that, trust me. But so their ban list looks a lot different than ours does. So we may have cards that are banned here that they have at 3 and vice versa. And Red Eyes Dark Dragoon is one of them. And even by today's standards, like, it's still a crazy good card, but it actually is seeing no play because they banned the main enabler for it.
I gotta say, these videos have made me, have increased my interest and respect for Yu-Gi-Oh! Quite a bit.
Really? Okay.
I'm not looking to pick up a new card game. Trust me, I've got plenty of games. I'm working on a game I'm developing as well as, of course, playing a ton of Magic. There's a lot more complexity and cool broken stuff that I wasn't aware of. Because, you know, my surface level knowledge of Yu-Gi-Oh! So this has been a very cool experience for sure.
Sure. And what was your favorite card that you got to see today? I imagine it was Dragoon, but maybe I'll be
No.
surprised.
It was actually a Mud Dragon of the Swamp.
Really?
That card has just like it feels like that card has a lot of interesting gameplay and possibilities to it, both in what it enables with the card type switching and the protection stuff. And it just, I don't know, it seems like a cool card. I like it.
Sure. Well, if you do come back for another episode, we still have plenty of other extra deck mechanics that we've not even covered yet. There are still, I believe, 3 other ones that we still have to go.
I've got to salvage my win percentage somehow, you know?
Well, we hope to have you back on in the future, LSV. Thank you so much. I hope you had a lot of fun. And like I said, I hope you learned a lot more about Yu-Gi-Oh! Compared to the first video. I had to up the challenge a little bit more here.
No, it's good. My power level is going to grow stronger as I learn more. But I always appreciate you having me on, and I definitely look forward to doing more.
So guys, that's going to wrap it up for another video. I really hope you all enjoyed. Let's go ahead and shout the patrons for all of their continued support. So shout outs to Shout1317, Sim00x3, MBT Play Medolce, Moto, Cameron L. Smith, The Synchro Guy, Pony Stark, Dan the Man Hoban, Little Fade Leaf, Draconic, Dylan Rare Hunter, JW11860, Brian Dancer of Class 7, Flannel Daddy, Twinkle Muncher, literally all of the guinea pigs, Cheeks McLapperty, Stolfin Amethyst, Wonder Waffle, MBT canceled by community soon, canceled by all committee soon, canceled by all players soon, Corvain, absolute angriest peacock of the Edison Club, Daniel Howell, and life keeps using solemn judgment on my hopes and dreams. Thank you all so much again for watching, and we will see you next time.